I was slicing into the cleanest medium rare steak I'd had in months. Crisp edge, red center, exactly how I like it. When the text came in. We're moving in a new direction. You're done, effective immediately. No hello, no signature, just that. Krista sent it. I froze mid-bite, knife still buried in the meat, phone lighting up in my left hand, and a glass of overpriced Cabernet in my right. I just sat there, chewing slowly, like my body hadn't caught up to what my brain just read. Theo Merrick was sitting across the room, head of Vector, our biggest rival, Krista's personal boogeyman. He looked up and caught my eyes like he already knew. Raised his glass to me, no smile. Just that cold nod rich people do when they've already won. I held the wine in my mouth like it was battery acid, swallowed it down. Around me, everyone kept laughing, toasting, throwing out fake compliments and buzzwords. Nobody had a clue I just lost my job in front of half the industry. Nobody even noticed the shift in my face. I nodded back at Theo. Same tight-lipped acknowledgement. Then I tucked my phone away, picked up my knife, and finished that steak. I wasn't going to give them a show. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. Krista didn't even have the decency to wait until Monday. Fired me by text. At a networking banquet. One I got us into. My pitch deck, my strategy, my contacts. All under her name now. My jaw clenched, but I kept smiling, shaking hands, thanking people I'd probably never work with again. And all the while, that message burned in my pocket. 5 seconds of text, and my whole career was ash. By the time dessert hit the table, I'd already decided what I was going to do. Theo hadn't broken eye contact once. He knew. Hell, maybe he was waiting for it. Maybe he was the reason. I didn't know yet. But I smiled right through it, played the part, clinked glasses and nodded along to a conversation I wasn't even hearing anymore. After dinner, I stood up, adjusted my blazer, and left, without saying goodbye to anyone. Not Krista, not the board, not the smug product team that built their launch off my architecture. Outside, the wind hit sharp. I didn't flinch. I pulled out my phone, opened the message again, then hit delete. I dropped the phone in my pocket, turned the corner, and walked the rest of the way home. Didn't bother with a car or a ride, didn't even notice the cold. My feet just moved. Every streetlight buzzed louder than my thoughts. I passed a liquor store, didn't go in. Passed a closed coffee shop, didn't care. My apartment was too quiet, too neat. I walked in like a stranger, kicked off my shoes, didn't bother turning on the lights. The glow from the street outside was enough. First thing I saw was my laptop, still open to the slide deck. The deck Krista used to get us into that banquet. The one that landed her the keynote slot, the podcast invites, the dumb LinkedIn posts about visionary leadership. My hands clenched before I even knew what I was doing. I grabbed the company hoodie off the back of the chair and shoved it in the trash. Then the coffee mug, the branded notebooks, the laptop sleeve, every little souvenir from a job I thought I'd retire from someday. Gone. I didn't even hesitate. Even threw out the welcome plaque they gave me back when I still believed in things like loyalty. I stood over the trash can for a second, heart pounding, palms hot. Then I saw it, my phone lit up again. Theo. You free to talk tomorrow? No emoji, no punctuation, just words. I stared at it. The way he sent it, so stripped down, it wasn't a favor. It was a move. I didn't respond. Just turned the screen off, dropped the phone face down on the counter, and sat in the kitchen with the overhead lights still off. I could hear the fridge humming. Could feel the edge of the stool digging into my thighs. Nothing else. That text sat in my brain like a weight. Theo Merrick wanted to talk. Not Krista. Not legal. Not some recruiter offering me a pivot role in middle management. No, him. He saw me. He watched me get cut. And now he wanted a word. I sat there for hours. Not in pain. Not crying. Just processing. Just watching it all snap into place. At 8 a.m. on the dot, I picked the phone back up. Name the place. The response came 30 seconds later. Highview Tower, top floor. That was Vector HQ. Not a coffee shop. Not a neutral co-working space. No attempt to soften it. It was a challenge. It was bait. I locked the screen and set the phone down again. Looked around at the quiet, spotless apartment. I had built this life off the back of late nights, missed birthdays, and enough overtime to fill another career. And just like that, The person who cashed in on it had cut me loose. I stood up and grabbed the trash bag, tied it shut like sealing a coffin, took it down the hall, out the door, and tossed the whole thing into the dumpster behind the building. Didn't flinch when the lid slammed shut. Didn't look back either. The next day, I shaved. Put on the charcoal suit. Same one I wore to Krista's board presentation. The one she called sharp but not cocky. I made it cocky on purpose. I didn't eat breakfast, didn't need coffee. I was already wide awake. Highview Tower stood downtown like it owned the skyline. I'd been in the lobby before, for conferences, panel talks, networking events, but never past the third floor. This time, I was cleared straight to the top. No small talk from the receptionist, no name badge, just an elevator ride up 48 floors with a woman who didn't say a word the whole way. I caught my reflection in the chrome doors, jaw locked, tie straight, shoulders squared. I looked like someone who hadn't been fired. I looked like someone who was about to fire back. The doors opened. Theo Merrick was waiting. Theo didn't shake my hand, didn't say good morning either. He just turned and walked deeper into the suite like I was already following. The place was pure intimidation. Black floors, floor-to-ceiling glass, slick furniture with no softness anywhere. The city stretched out below us like a map. He stopped at a long table set with nothing but a folder and a pen. "Sit," he said. "Read it. Sign if you're serious." I pulled the NDA from the folder. 10 pages, dense, cold, all teeth. I didn't ask questions. I read fast, flipped, signed, slid it back to him. Theo barely looked at it, just nodded once and said, "This isn't a job. It's a dismantling. You're the scalpel." He finally met my eyes when he said that. Dead serious, like this was surgery and someone was already bleeding out on the table. I leaned back. "Then stop wasting time." He motioned and a second door opened. 2 people came in. One woman, early 30s, sharp as hell, tablet already in hand. One guy, older, probably legal. Both sat without a word. Theo stayed standing. "This is Forge," he said. "We don't build products. We unbuild them. We disrupt launch cycles. We outmaneuver leadership. We don't fight fair. We win." I didn't nod, didn't blink. I knew what this was now. Theo looked at the woman. "You'll debrief him?" She tapped the tablet once and said, "We don't need your pitch. We need your intel. Start with Krista. Weaknesses, habits, blind spots." I didn't hesitate. She obsesses over her public image, won't take internal feedback unless it's from above. She's terrified of dissent, so she promotes yes people who won't challenge her. She's been fast-tracking AI features without a compliance runway because she's chasing quarterly buzz, the woman typed as I spoke. The guy didn't flinch. I kept going. She siloed the product team so tight, they can't even flag legal issues until she greenlights them. And she's using the Q1 growth numbers from my deck to bluff investor confidence, even though she knows the rollout's not stable. The woman paused typing. "You have access to restricted documents?" "No," I said. "Didn't need to. I built the damn framework. I know what she's sitting on. I know what she's skipping." Theo finally sat. That's what I needed to hear. He leaned forward on his elbows. "You're not here for revenge," he said. "You're here for correction. What she broke, you help us break better. No ego, no legacy, just efficiency." The woman looked up from her screen. "What about loyalty? Anyone over there still on your side?" "No one worth saving," I said. Theo gave the smallest smirk. "Then we start now." He slid a second folder across the table. Inside were diagrams, hers and ours, side by side, feature timelines, rollout dates, projected PR windows, VCs watching from the sidelines. "This is a chessboard," Theo said. "We don't play on it. We flip it." I didn't answer, just studied every page like I was memorizing it for trial. The woman stood up. "We'll get you a station, clean laptop, full compartmentalization." The man followed her out. Theo stayed behind, still watching me like a hawk. "You know why I picked you?" he asked. "Because I'm angry enough to follow through," I said. He shook his head once. "Because you've already been inside her house, and you know exactly where it's weak." I stood. "So let's start the demolition." They gave me a windowless room with 2 locked terminals and a whiteboard. No distractions, no chat channels, no fluff. Just space to do damage. I didn't ask for a team, didn't need one. 2 weeks in, Krista released an internal memo. Someone leaked it immediately. Subject line, trimming dead weight. She didn't name me, didn't have to. The entire second paragraph was one long victory lap about cutting underperformers who misrepresented their value. Even bolded the word integrity like a punchline. I sent it to Theo. He didn't reply, just sent me back a PDF draft already titled, Why Shortcuts in AI Compliance Will Sink the 2025 Risk Market. It read like an academic gut punch, objective tone, technical language, but every line mirrored Krista's launch pitch. Same buzzwords, same verticals, same projections, except ours had footnotes, receipts, and enough quiet accusation to make people squirm. We didn't mention her firm, didn't have to. I made sure it dropped at 9:17 a.m. on a Tuesday, her usual go-live window. We buried her in her own timing. The panic didn't take long. She delayed her rollout by 4 days, claimed they were stress testing for scale. Her CTO stopped posting on LinkedIn. Their beta invite list got cut in half. 2 VCs she was banking on went cold. By the end of the week, our article had made it into 3 trade newsletters and 1 podcast. No spin. No quote from me, just analysis. Smart, brutal analysis. Theo walked into my space that Friday morning and dropped a magazine on my keyboard. Vector on the cover. Headline, Quiet Giants, the Insider Editions. Giving Vector the edge in risk, AI. He didn't say a word, just tapped the word insider and walked out. That was me. I didn't smile, didn't post about it, just turned the page and kept working. The woman from Forge, her name was Morgan, came by that afternoon and slid a sticky note onto my desk. Krista's next panel appearance, Insurance Innovation East. 40 minutes of scripted buzzwords, then Q&A. You want in? She asked. Not yet, I said. We weren't ready for a public cut, not until the bleeding showed. Instead, I gave Morgan a new draft to pass up the chain. Title, The Risk of Rapid, Why AI-Driven Insurance Needs a Moratorium Before Market Penetration. It wasn't a headline, it was a warning shot. And it hit. 3 advisory groups reposted it with caution tags. 1 compliance firm echoed the call. The industry started shifting before Krista even realized the conversation had moved without her. She'd built her launch strategy on speed. We just showed them why that was the exact reason not to trust her. Theo's assistant came in the next morning with a folder of investor notes, highlighted reactions, trend lines, 2 clipped emails with 1 sentence circled in red ink. Why are we still aligned with a team that moves like this? I left the folder closed. Morgan dropped into the chair across from me. You seeing this? I nodded once. She's off balance. Ready to push? I picked up the dry erase marker, stood, and drew a new timeline across the board. We don't push, I said. We widen the cracks. And I handed her the next play. Morgan scanned the board, then nodded. We ready to show them? I erased the left side of the timeline and circled 1 word, lantern. We launched it 2 days later. Invite-only demo. No live stream, no public beta. Just a controlled showing inside a conference suite we rented 2 blocks from Krista's office. 2 investors, 3 top insurance leads, 1 former client of hers who now had our name on their calendar. Lantern didn't look like a prototype. It looked finished, because it was. Everything she'd promised, the AI-powered triage engine, the adaptive underwriting layer, the real-time audit trail, we delivered it. No vapor, no spin, just proof. I stood in the back during the demo, arms crossed, saying nothing. The reaction said everything. No one looked at their phone. No one left early. They stayed. They asked sharp questions. We had sharper answers. By the time the room cleared, Theo was already on the phone. She'll see this in 10 minutes, he said, not even trying to keep his voice down. Start the clocks. She didn't take 10. She took 3. The cease and desist hit our legal inbox before we even packed up the projector. Accusations of IP theft, trade secret misuse, idea laundering, her words. Morgan read it twice, then tossed it across the table. She's swinging blind. Vector's lawyers replied by morning. 3 lines. No protected assets accessed, no proprietary data breached, all records available for audit. I never took a file, not a screenshot, not a snippet of code. I remembered it all, every integration point, every bottleneck, every legal corner she'd cut and claimed as innovation. I'd built the damn skeleton. This version just had better bones. I'd documented everything, every conversation, every whiteboard session. I even had time-stamped drafts in my personal notebook, dated months before I left. Our team ran a full audit trail on Lantern, third-party verified, ironclad. Krista's firm dropped the charges before the week ended. Her panic made it public, and public made it permanent. One of the VCs we demoed to looped back within 48 hours with a revised funding pathway. Code 4, we're backing you now, quietly. Another asked for a long-term advisory partnership. Not funding, just access. That meant leverage. Krista's side tried to bury it with a white paper, some soft branding moves, and a round of online damage control. Her CTO reappeared with a blog post about ethical innovation. Half of it was nonsense. I didn't respond, didn't post, didn't need to. Theo walked into my workspace with a coffee and handed it over. "Good job," he said. I took the cup and sat down without a word. He paused by the door. "You know she's still waiting for us to go loud, right?" "Let her wait," I said. "Noise is her game." He left. I opened Lantern's next sprint board and got back to work. Because the more she scrambled, the more we moved past her. 2 days later, Krista tried to flip the script. A glossy piece dropped on a mid-tier tech blog. Obvious sponsor tags, recycled pull quotes, and a full section about corporate loyalty in an age of information warfare. I was the target. They didn't name me outright, but it was clear. She called it a case study in betrayal. Tossed around words like disloyal, exploitative, and borderline corporate espionage. Claimed I'd destabilized her roadmap in retaliation for being held accountable. Held accountable. That was rich. Morgan sent me the link with a subject line that just said, "Cute." I didn't respond. We already had our move ready. That same morning, we rolled out Forge's first public initiative, Bridge, a mentorship program aimed at underrepresented talent in AI strategy and ethics, not a PR stunt. A real program with funded slots, mentor pairing, and built-in pathways to Vector's pipeline. The feature photo showed me mid-laugh, seated at a round table with 4 junior strategists, 3 of them women, all of them sharp as hell. Nothing posed, nothing defensive. I wasn't a rogue asset anymore. I was leadership. Krista's spin collapsed on contact. Her narrative made me look bitter and opportunistic. Ours made me look invested in the future. And then Theo came in holding something, a file folder, paper, old school, dropped it on my desk. "You recognize this?" I opened it. Top page was my resignation letter, dated 2 days before she fired me, my signature, time-stamped receipt from her assistant. Theo raised an eyebrow. "You want to use it?" I didn't even hesitate. "Leak it." He didn't ask how. 36 hours later, it was everywhere. First, it showed up in a Substack recap about ethics and C-suite turnover. Then a VC reposted it with the caption, "Well, that changes things." Then came the actual screenshots, the resignation, the received date, the silence. No speculation, just proof. She hadn't fired me. She'd buried my exit and tried to rewrite the story. The comment sections flipped. People who'd parroted her spin were suddenly deleting tweets. Her defenders backpedaled. Even her board released a half-hearted statement about internal review protocol failures. By the end of the week, I was booked on a panel about leadership resilience, paid spot, sold out. Krista's name didn't come up once. Morgan looked over the Bridge dashboard and gave a satisfied nod. "This is how you do it." "Do what?" I asked. She smiled. "Replace someone." I stood up and walked back to the whiteboard. Next launch cycle was already outlined. We weren't done yet. The panel wrapped, the applause faded, and the moderator shook my hand like I'd just sold them a future they could trust. I went home and opened my old Dropbox. Buried 3 folders deep was a scan I hadn't looked at in over a year, a contract, legal boilerplate at first glance. But then I hit the section I remembered writing myself, back when I was still the one doing all the architecture work, wearing 3 hats and getting credit for none. Clause 14.3. Third-party integration ownership. It was clear as day. I retained full rights to any architectural framework built for external partners, unless a written waiver was signed by both parties. I scanned the file top to bottom. No waiver, not a single one, not from me, not from Krista. I checked the contract ID, checked the metadata, last modified date, Clean. No edits, no overwrites. She'd used my framework as the foundation for their biggest insurance partner, the one whose backing gave her firm enough weight to bluff through compliance questions and tech gaps, the one whose name was on everything. Without that clause handled, they were licensing ghost property, and now I held the original title. Next morning, I walked into Theo's office. Didn't knock. He looked up from his laptop, then leaned back when he saw the folder in my hand. I slid it across the table. He opened it, scanned it once, then twice slower. "This signed?" he asked. "Original. Check the logs." No waiver? Not even a reply email. He sat with it for a few seconds. Then that grin crept in, the one he only showed when the play was already made. "This," he said, tapping the clause, "is how we make them call us." He didn't mean Krista. She was done talking. This was bigger. This meant board-level leverage, liability exposure, real risk. 2 days later, the call came. Not from her. From their interim CEO, a guy named Harold. Polite voice, nervous edge. "We'd like to talk," he said. "Some mutual value we believe we can align on." Translation, "We're bleeding and can't stop it without your paperwork." Theo took the call on speaker. I said nothing. Harold danced around phrases like oversight and legacy access paths. The second he asked for a sit-down, Theo paused and looked at me. I nodded once. He leaned back and said, "Neutral location, private, no media, no lawyers in the room." "We'll make it happen," Harold said. Theo hung up without a goodbye, then looked at me. "You ready to end it?" I stood. "I'm ready to price it." Theo booked the suite at the Halston downtown. Neutral ground, no press, no signage. No one in the lobby even looked up when we walked in. Room 913, private, thick curtains, bottled water on the table, no microphones, no cameras, no corporate reps, just 3 chairs, 1 door. She was already there when we arrived. Krista sat still, spine straight, like the room didn't deserve to see her slouch. Blazer clean, makeup sharp, nails done, but her eyes were red. Not bloodshot, not weepy. Just raw, like she hadn't slept in days and wasn't going to ask for sympathy. I didn't sit right away. I placed the folder in front of her. "Here's the deal." She didn't touch it. "I read the summary," she said, flat. "You want to surrender." I kept my tone even. "We want ownership of the IP we built. You'll shut down all diagnostics tied to Lantern's framework. No lawsuits, no public disputes, no transfers, no golden parachutes." Her mouth tightened. "So, I'm supposed to let you erase everything I built?" "You didn't build it," I said. "You named it and stood in front of the camera. We did the rest." She leaned back. "You know what this looks like? Character assassination. You waited, you plotted, and now you're dragging my name through the mud." "It's not character assassination," I said. "It's accounting. The numbers didn't lie. You did." She didn't break. But the room cracked a little. Then the door opened again. Linda walked in. I hadn't seen her since the year Krista got promoted off my work. My old mentor, Krista's longtime friend. One of the only people in that company I ever trusted. And the first one who went quiet when things turned. She closed the door behind her, sat next to Krista, but angled toward me. "I asked to be here," she said. Krista didn't look at her. "You should have called me," Linda added, voice calm. "I would have told you not to dig this hole." "I didn't dig anything," Krista snapped. "They ambushed me. They used me. They rewrote history." Linda raised a brow. "Did you sign the waiver?" Krista said nothing. "Did you deny the resignation?" Still nothing. Linda turned slightly, looked her straight in the face. "This isn't betrayal," she said, quiet but firm. "It's consequences." Krista blinked just once. Then she looked at me. "You'll still be hated," she said. "No matter how clean you played it." I leaned forward. "Good. That means they'll remember it." Theo hadn't said a word the whole time, just stood by the door, arms crossed, letting the weight hang. Krista opened the folder, flipped to the last page, pulled out her pen. She signed, not one question, not one demand, no counteroffer, just a signature scribbled fast and sharp. She closed the folder, pushed it across the table. Then she stood, straightened her blazer, and walked toward the door. No eye contact, no final jab, no goodbye, just silence. She walked out smaller than she came in. 3 weeks later, I stood under studio lights in a glass building I didn't recognize. next to people I barely knew, and watched it all become official. The press conference was sterile, branded backdrop, bottled water lined up like props, cameras everywhere, phones raised, waiting for a slip. Wolf, Vector's VP of strategy, handled most of the talking, polished guy, neutral voice. He kept the words vague and optimistic. Exciting realignment, expanded capabilities, shared vision. I didn't speak, didn't need to. I was already in every document. My name was in the footnotes, on the filings, embedded in the architecture. The moment that pen hit the deal papers, their future became mine. Krista's firm was absorbed, stripped, folded into Vector like it had never stood on its own. The name was gone, the platform rebranded, the product roadmap gutted and rebuilt under Forge's banner. After the cameras packed up and the last handshake faded, I stepped outside and opened my phone, typed one word, delivered, posted it. No hashtags, no context. The industry didn't need it. They knew. VCs started quietly pulling out of related ventures. Investors in Krista's old umbrella fund hit the panic button. 2 board members resigned that same week, one citing ethical misalignment, the other just ghosted. One founder I used to mentor messaged me, "That tweet just broke 5 startups. You know that, right?" I didn't reply. This wasn't personal anymore. It was correction. The kind you can't spin in a podcast. The following Monday, Morgan walked into my office with the final internal memo in her hand. I could tell by the grin she didn't even try to hide. It hit exactly how we wanted. I took the page from her, read it once. Last section was simple. As part of this strategic realignment, all remaining assets tied to the former Krista platform are now under Forge oversight. Future integration decisions will be led by executive stakeholders. Standard cleanup language, dry, legal, expected. But at the bottom, in the smallest font, barely there, was a quote. Just one line. Fresh blood always knows where to bleed you. Theo's idea. I didn't argue. Morgan tilted her head. "You want to send it?" I nodded. To her personal inbox, no CC. She smiled. "Done." I watched her walk out with the memo, then sat back in the chair and stared at the city. No billboards, no breaking news ticker, just buildings, just movement. It didn't feel like a win. It felt like a reroute, a final pivot. All the noise that used to come with her name, gone. Just static now. And everything she touched, mine. I stood at the window of my condo, drink in hand, watching the city move like it didn't just watch someone get erased. People honking, lights changing, street-level noise from 22 floors down. Same chaos as always. Krista? She was gone. Not officially, not in headlines, but gone in the way that matters. Quiet exits, deleted bios, old posts edited into nothing. No one would say it out loud, but they knew. And me? I wasn't celebrating. Just breathing again. Letting it settle. The bourbon burned a little less than usual. I'd been holding on to the idea of revenge for so long, I forgot what silence felt like. This was it. No more fire, just business. The clause I wrote, that boring, overlooked paragraph buried in a contract everyone else skimmed, that was my insurance. Tucked away like a fire extinguisher no one thought I'd need. It did its job, but the real win, that came from the reputation I built after. Not before, not during, after. I didn't burn her firm to the ground. I didn't have to. She lit the fuse the day she cut me loose and assumed no one was watching. I just made sure no one got in the way. That was the difference. People like Krista play for headlines. I play for infrastructure. Let her chase followers. I built something that outlived sound bites. I'd been underestimated. That part was real. But that's the thing about people like me. We don't need you to see us coming. We just need you to feel it when we arrive. And now I was untouchable. Not because I screamed louder, but because I stayed standing after the echo died. I set the glass down on the table behind me and walked to the office. Lights low, screens off. Just the quiet click of my steps across the hardwood. One wall was bare except for a single nameplate, framed, my name, no hashtags, no press quote, no tagline, just legacy. The new build was already in motion, something bigger, smarter, built slow and built right, not to prove a point, not out of spite, just because I could. I wasn't looking back anymore, because when you really win, You don't yell it. You don't pose for it. You don't brand it. You just let the silence say it for you.